Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. Our mission is to see a world well led. And our strategy to get there? To empower leaders like you to lead every day. So let's get to work.
One of my kids did some baking for me over the weekend, and a couple days later, we're still having we got cookies at the house. It's really great.
And I love cookies.
I love cookies too. We're not going to talk about cookies today, but we are going to talk about the ingredients of a great team. I learned about ingredients this weekend. You got to have the right ingredients. You want the right cookies. There's some ingredients to a team. Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. I'm Randy Gravett.
And I'm Mark Miller.
And I can't wait to have this conversation today because, Mark, there really are some ingredients to a great team. We said we're going to talk to people about how to build teams. We're rolling now into season 4. I'm excited about it. So I'm thinking about these teams. There are some things that you have to have in place. You're going to do that. And it's something that you actually learned. You said yesterday you learned some things as you started this team journey at Chick-fil-A.
Over a quarter of a century.
It's been 25 years that you worked on this, and there were some things you learned. There were some ingredients. We've taught this to your operators and all kind of people, businesses everywhere, all over the world. We've worked with sports teams and all kind of people. And these ingredients, I believe they're universal. You got to have these things. And so,
right.
Can you tell that story?
Sure. So, a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away, we began to try and determine how we could help our organization and specifically the restaurants, because as many of our listeners know, I spent over 40 years at Chick-fil-A. And so we were trying to figure out how to help the restaurants improve performance. Again, that was the mandate. And we hit upon this idea that we thought the businesses were growing in volume and complexity such that perhaps a team would be helpful.
And let me pause you. You had a model at that time. It was really built on the leader, the point,
a leader.
The operator.
That was the model we started with.
And so that was, I can only imagine
a leader.
That you talk about the complexity, the capacity squeeze was at some point.
Even the early restaurants were designed where the operator, the man or woman that runs the restaurant, could stand at the end of the front counter. They could see the front counter. They could see into the kitchen, and they could see the dining room.
Okay.
It's kind of like the cockpit, and they would tell people in the back to cook more chicken or send somebody to the front or send somebody to the dining room, and they were the air traffic controller. And again, when the business was simple and we had men and women who could serve that role, everything was great.
Right.
But
but complexity
and volume and all these other things. And so we went to work studying the best teams in the world. And we ultimately determined that there were 3 primary and core ingredients, and these are things we'll unpack in the days ahead. But the first is talent. Again, that could go as a blinding flash of the obvious, but the teams with the best players have the greatest chance of winning, and we'll talk a lot more about talent. Yeah. The other thing that we realized that all great teams had are skills. Now, to drill down just a little bit, we realize that there are 2 types of skills. They're individual skills and they're team skills. So if you're a basketball team, you as a player have to learn to pass and dribble and shoot, but the team skills have to do with what are the plays and how are we going to work together. So there's a corollary in the team world, some individual and
we're going to dive into that.
And
that'll be great.
Team skills. And I want to stop right there for a second because what we learned is the world is full of good teams. And good teams are those that have talent and skills.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there are a lot of crappy teams in the world. We may talk about them some too, but let's talk about the good teams. They have talent and skills. But we weren't satisfied with that. We saw that there were some teams that were extraordinary, and we wanted to figure out what differentiated them. We went on to call these high-performance teams. And what we discovered is there's an intangible that we ultimately call community. And this is an esprit de corps. This is a level of caring and concern for individual members of the team. We'll
unity. There's lots
we'll
of
break
things
that down.
That's good.
But that's what differentiates and turbocharges good teams to make them great teams. And so we began to talk about talent, skills, and community. And interesting enough, we got pushback. And it was
well, actually, let me pause you again. You wrote this draft of this book, which ended up being this, if you're watching on YouTube, The Secret of Teams. This was a book that was written several years ago, and you've told me this story before. Your draft of this had those three ideas in it,
had
right?
those three
and then
ideas.
you started sending that out, and
and we got feedback, and people kept saying, "Why would we do this? This is a lot of time. This is a lot of energy, and this is a lot of work." And we said, "Well, you would do it to drive performance." And people looked at us like, "Really? Is that what this is all about?" So we went back and added a fourth element. It's talent, skills, and community focused on results.
Right.
We've never seen a high-performance team that's a team just to be a team.
right.
You got to be a team in order to
Why do you even
accomplish
need a
something.
team? Why do you waste your time
Yeah,
if it's
you're
not helping you get
Well,
better?
You could go join a local country club
Yeah,
if you just
exactly.
want a social thing, right?
That's right.
And this is not a social thing. This
Right.
is a strategic leadership decision to drive performance. And so now we say there are four elements:
Yeah.
talent, skills, community, focused on results.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. So as we just lay out that framework, here's what let's do. Let's unpack that the next few days. Let's spend some time, and we'll dive deep into each one of these, because if you're listening, we want you to walk away day after day after day going, I can actually do that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about
I can apply that.
tactics.
We're going to give you some tactical things that you can do in each of these areas. We'll start with talent tomorrow. Let's dive into that. But I love this idea of talent, skills, and community focused on results. Let's talk just a second here about results. I think so many teams, they're in the habit of just going through the motions, and they're not really focused on what they ought to be focused on. And there's a difference in a team and a work group. Let's talk about that for just a second. So it's so easy to think we have a meeting, so we must be a team. That's not what we're talking about. You're going to need to come back and learn some of this.
Yeah, you
stuff.
see organizations all over the world that'll put 6 or 8 people in a room and kind of wave a magic wand and say, "Poof, you're a team."
Yeah,
well, no, they're not.
Couldn't be further
No, they're
from the
not.
truth.
One of the things that we discovered and have talked about over the years is this concept you mentioned of a work group. Now, let me quickly add, work groups aren't a bad thing.
Yeah, I was going to say there's nothing wrong
but
with a work
there
group.
are significant consequences. And
Yeah.
a work group is basically when you do your work and I do my work and somebody else does their work and somebody else does their work. And at the end of the week or the month or the quarter, we add it all up. It's additive.
Yeah.
It's 1 + 1 + 1 + 1.
And we get 4.
And you get 4.
And that's pretty.
And
much
that's
it.
a work group
Yeah.
because there's no synergy. You've
Yeah.
not capitalized on the power inherent in the team.
Yeah.
But a real team is 1 + 1 + 1 is 4. You add 1.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So that's good where you get some synergy. That's how you get to good team status.
And then even when you get into what you're talking about, good to great, the
1 + 1 + 1 is 10.
plus. I mean, it becomes exponential
That's
when
the
you get
high performance team.
all this working together.
when you add
So that
community.
to me, that's what I want to promise the people who are listening. If they'll come back, we're going to give them some things that they can do that is going to create, I believe, exponential impact in their business, in their company, in their team. Maybe they're a sports team. We work with sports teams too. I think they've got a shot here if they get this right and understand these concepts. And there's rigor here and there's discipline. And if we can unpack this and they can apply that.
Oh, we can. And as you know, we've helped thousands of teams.
It's been so fun.
Over the last, oh my goodness, now, because we did that work over about a 25-year span. We started this work in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And so we have helped thousands.
Well, and while you were
thousands
selling
of
chicken the
teams.
last decade, my team at that point had we've been helping companies everywhere, over 100 companies. It's like crazy in businesses that, and we see this over and over. If they will build a talent base, level up their skills. It's not enough to get 5 stars. Somebody else has them too. You better be leveling up their skills. But if you can get them to work together in that sense of community and you focus on the right thing, it's crazy.
It's magical.
There's rare air
It's
to be
magical.
experienced.
And it's within reach
It
of
really
every
is.
leader.
Every leader. So hope you'll come back tomorrow. We're gonna start with talent. I know a bunch of you who are listening, you're having a hard time finding people, keeping people, finding the right people. That's what we're going to dive into as we start this conversation on talent. We'll talk about why talent matters so much tomorrow. Remember, the best leaders lead every day.